Hi, Comets. Today we will be talking about time management for college students. But before we get into our presentation, we are uploading regularly on our YouTube channel. So if you would like to see videos that are uploaded in the future, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel, as well as you can hit the bell icon to get notifications for future uploads. Also, to make this presentation more accessible, you can always go into your settings and turn on the closed captioning. So before we get into the presentation, let me also introduce myself. My name is Dr. Prachi Sharma. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Engagement at University Counseling Center, University of Texas at Dallas. I'm also a licensed clinical psychologist. So particularly related to my time management, this topic has been really interesting to me because I've worked with a lot of students who struggle generally with time management. And I think that's probably one of the #1 things I hear from students that they're struggling with, because it can be very challenging to come to college and then to figure out how to kind of balance so many different aspects of your life. So we really kind of work hard on kind of figuring out those skills. And these are some of the skills you might have heard about or learned somewhere else, but it's always a good refresher to kind of go over them. And maybe these are some of the skills that you haven't thought about or haven't learned before. So hopefully this presentation would be helpful in doing that for you. And also, I'm being very mindful that we are in the time of COVID-19, and many of the students are at home and then trying to juggle all of their other responsibilities with distance learning. So it can be a challenging time to figure out how to allocate your time, how to use your time more productively. So hopefully some of the skills that we talk about would be helpful in giving you some structure that can really help feel more productive in this time. So starting with what are time management skills? So I really like this definition because it just kind of encapsulates what time management is all about. It's about, part of it is planning. So knowing, how you would be doing things. So you're kind of getting some organization around that. And then you're being sort of mindful of how you're spending your time during the day. And then you're trying to, with that, figuring out how you spend your time. You're trying to increase your efficiency. You're trying to increase your effectiveness and productivity. So even as you're looking at how you're spending your time, you're also looking at, is there a way to spend my time more effectively and feel a little more productive? And then when we're looking at time management, we're just not looking at your academic activities. You're kind of trying to look at the holistic picture in terms of, like, how much time you're spending socializing, how much time you're spending for your work, how much time you're spending for your self-care, and things that give you meaning and purpose. So we're kind of, really kind of looking at all the things that is required of you to do and expected of you to do, and things that you want to do, and figuring out how to effectively use the time that you get. Because all of us only get about 24 hours. So it becomes kind of even more so important to figure out how to be able to do all the things that you want to do and do it in a timely way that you're feeling most productive with. And these are some of the stuff that we will be talking about today are some specific tools and skills and techniques that certainly will help you with time-sensitive tasks, but can give you structure as well during your day. And I feel like these skills are really helpful to talk about because it can be really challenging if you don't know how to organize your day or how to effectively use your time. You could be working really hard, but maybe not getting the outcome that you need. So it's always good to kind of learn more about different tools and skills and techniques that are available. Okay, so talking about 3 Ps of effective time management. And this kind of gives us a good framework into, okay, it's not that, all of a sudden I'll just learn these skills and I'll be, able to get more productive. You're being more intentional about going about even figuring out how to manage your time. So for a lot of work kind of goes into planning. So figuring out what you need to do, what needs to get done. You're kind of going more into the future and trying to get ahead and trying to anticipate tasks that needs to be done. And then with that, figuring out what are the priorities within your tasks, because not all tasks are created equal, or not all of the things that you need to do are of equal priority. So figuring out how to kind of prioritize what needs to be done. And then perhaps the third one, which is procrastination. It's probably, I hear students struggle with the most is when they kind of hit that wall and don't know how to find motivation, how sometimes we have a tendency to put off things until it's kind of like the very last minute, and then it can be an extremely anxiety-provoking and very stressful time for us if you're not able to kind of spend time when you need it to, and it can get pretty stressful. So we'll talk a little bit about procrastination as well, and some ways that we can manage that and push through and get things done that we need to do. Okay, so this is a really good place to start. First, thinking about planning, you want to make this pie chart. I really like this pie chart because it kind of tells you maybe where is chunk of your time going, where and how are you spending this time, and this kind of gives you a good baseline of where you're at, and that could tell you, for studying, it takes me X amount of time, for classes, X amount. I'm exercising, eating, self-care, work takes this much time, and sleep. So it will kind of give you, once you start with this, it will give you a good baseline of where you're at, and then you'll be able to kind of get a better idea of where you need to allocate more time, or maybe, places where you can, take some portion out of your pie chart. So just, you can do this very simply, you can take a notebook and just go over it, and just kind of get a good, sense of how your day is spent, and what activities that you engage in. And once you've done that, some of the things in terms of planning could be helpful, is figuring out, what does your day typically look like? So when you are on campus and you are attending classes, it's going to look a lot different versus, it may be looking like right now when you are studying from home or engaging in virtual distance learning. So it's going to look a little bit different for you right now. And I really like this quote by Alan Lincoln. Just talks about planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. So it's really just kind of figuring out what your future is going to look like and creating a plan right now so that you can accomplish those tasks as you go along. So always a good spot to start with. I always recommend students to get a planner, or right now there are tons of really good apps and that you can that are available in your app store. So definitely go check them out, see which one kind of really works for you. If you need something on your phone, you can download an app there, and that could kind of give you a little bit sense of, your structure during your day. Or if you prefer to handwrite things, getting a planner could be really helpful because then you can take it with you wherever you need to go. And it's a little bit more visual. It's a little bit easier, and then you can kind of move things around and change as needed. So I would say get a planner first, and then trying to, thinking about bringing structure in your day, just figuring out just big chunks of time and where do they go. So starting with, your sleep time, and trying to, particularly this time, kind of really trying to stick with a schedule and a routine, because during these times, we kind of are living in an uncertain time. So giving a little bit more structure to your day would give you a little bit more sense of control and will help you feel less anxious about the future. So, just start with, your sleep times, your class times. Put in things that you already are anticipating are going to happen throughout the day for you. So starting with, time for eating, cooking, meetings that you need to attend, or class times. So once you kind of get a little bit of more structure around that, you will know then how much flexibility you have within your schedule to change things or spend more time doing something specific. So I always, kind of talk to students about as soon as you get your syllabus. So this may not be applicable right now because we're in the middle of the semester, but when semester starts, you can start with, the first week of classes, or even for some professors give you your syllabus before you start. So start with that. Look at your syllabus and then kind of really note what are the due dates for each class and exam. And that will help you sort of identify what could be the priorities going forward. And will give you a little bit more of talking about future planning, sort of large scale planning of what the semester is going to look like. It will help you identify what the priorities are. So definitely take your syllabus and then you can plan out that way. And then certainly, you could kind of identify some short-term and long-term goals. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and how to kind of turn them into daily, weekly, monthly goals so that you feel like you're kind of making progress and you're staying on track. Because at times it can be difficult when you have competing priorities to figure out what is most important right now, what needs to be get done first. So starting with your syllabus could be really helpful. And then getting some structure during your day could be really helpful. And then setting some SMART goals could be really helpful. So what are SMART goals? SMART stands for specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound. So it can be pretty challenging. Sometimes goals can feel pretty lofty and long, and then it becomes really hard to kind of figure out what you need to do first to accomplish that large goal. So when you have a large goal, like you have to study for a big exam, kind of break it down into smaller goals. What would that look like? So say you have an exam that's a comprehensive exam and it's covering 6 chapters. It may be a good idea to kind of break them down into single chapters and make those as your goals. And if that's feeling a little bit more difficult, if you can break it down further into different sections, and that could kind of help you stay on track and see, which sections would be most important for the exam. Where do I need to study first? What do I need to do first? And then with that, if you're saying, okay, I want to complete this section, what would it look like? How would you measure that you've completed that section? So, and that could be for different things. You could say, I've taken notes on that particular section, or I've taken a quiz on that, and I feel like I'm doing well on that, or you feel like you're kind of retaining the information you've learned. That can be really helpful. And then you want to, as you're thinking about your goal, you're thinking about some action-oriented steps that you're going to take. Okay, so what that means, I want to study this particular section, then, okay, I need to designate X amount of time to study, and then I will be taking X amount of notes, and then I will be completing a quiz. So you're kind of breaking them down into smaller action-oriented steps, and not just sometimes, okay, I will read this a chapter, or I will learn XYZ for my exam. So that can feel a little bit harder to tackle because you don't really have an action plan in place. So it can really kind of help you, okay, this is my general goal. What steps am I going to take to accomplish my goal? And then that kind of kind of helps you break it down a little bit, gives you a little bit more direction, gives you a little bit more clarity in terms of what it is that behaviorally that you need to do to accomplish your task. And then this is something that students really struggle with. So setting realistic goals. So sometimes when you feel that you're not accomplishing your goals, even though you've set them up really well, it could be because you've just not set realistic expectations of yourself. And that can be, demotivating for folks. It can be very challenging then to feel like you're on track. So if you're feeling like you're not completing or not doing what you needed to do, maybe you need to look at that goal again, and then see if it was realistic for yourself or not. And within that, you're also accounting for some challenges you might face or some obstacles. So say you want to study a chapter, but then you have distractions, or somebody needs you during those times. So, it's always a good idea, at least at the beginning when you're first starting, to account for more time. So if a task is going to take more time, so you're accounting for that. Then, so that way it kind of gives you a little bit more wiggle room to take your time and kind of complete that specific task. So if you feel like, okay, I can complete this chapter in an hour, maybe give yourself an hour and a half to go through it, so that you have that little bit of bigger room to figure out if you needed more time. And also it would account for distractions or obstacles you might face. And then also with that, kind of put a time bound, timeline on it. And that what that really means is that you're kind of telling yourself, okay, I do have to complete this task, but I'm giving myself X amount of time. So that way, you kind of stay on task. So you know when you'll be starting something and when you'll be ending. And then trying to stick to it as much as you can. In the beginning, when you're setting up goals, it can be pretty challenging to do that. But just being, very compassionate with yourself and knowing that it can take time. And some of these skills are, they take time to hone. They take time to, figuring out what skills can really be beneficial for you, what you need to do first. So just be very kind with yourself when you're trying out some new things. Okay, so with setting SMART goals, with your different goals that you've set, now you can kind of start looking at how to prioritize them and how to organize your different activities that you do during the day. A simple way to do it is to create a to-do list. So create, all the things that you want to do and accomplish. And these are going to be apart from your daily routine and apart from all the things that you do during the day anyway. So you're kind of figuring out all the other things that you want to add and accomplish and starting to create a to-do list with that. And then, like we kind of talked about in SMART goals, then you're kind of specifying what actions you need to take to accomplish those goals. So again, it kind of makes that more concrete, makes it more clear for you. Then you're like, okay, if I'm working on a presentation, okay, then, I'm going to spend X amount of time researching, X amount of time in slides, and X amount of time practicing giving a presentation. So really breaking them down into further action items, so that can kind of really help you think a little bit more about that task and things that you need to do. And within your schedule, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself some time to get some rest, daily activities that you need to do, eating, cooking, spending time with family and friends, getting ready in the morning. So sometimes, if you're not consciously thinking about your day, it can be really hard to kind of find some structure. So if you're creating a schedule, this could kind of really help you with that. It can help you allocate some time throughout your day for the tasks that you need to do, your everyday tasks. And then within that, within your class times, and then you can, based on the priority, maybe you can start tackling some of your to-do list items. And that could be really kind of helpful in kind of getting you started into figuring out how your day is going to look like. And then if there's some extra work that you can do during your day, that, is a priority item for you. And like I kind of talked about earlier, just take a good look at all the subjects you need to study. and then use your syllabus and due dates as a way to organize. Some folks are visual, so it could be really helpful if you have like a large calendar and you can put dates on it, and then you can add specific tasks to different days. And that can also kind of help you stay on task, but then you can kind of see what's coming first, what do I need to tackle first, and then, you know, working on, if the project is not due until later in the semester, then maybe you don't need to worry about that one right now. Maybe you need to study for the exam that's coming up first, so you're not distracted with doing other things. So it can really help you stay more organized. And this is like a lovely chart that I find that I give to students. Sometimes when you have competing goals, it can be challenging to figure out, okay, I don't know what I need to do first, what's more important. So you can kind of break this down into 4 quadrants for yourself. And on one side is the importance, the other is urgency. So urgency is in times of, okay, are other people depending on you? Do you need to get something done? Is it, time-wise, is it more urgent? Like, this comes first, this is what I need to do. And then important wise, it's more like personal to you, how important is this particular task to me? So sometimes a task can be important, but it may not be urgent. So then you want to kind of really start with what are the tasks that are high urgency and high importance, tackle that first, and then figure out, if it's something that really gives you meaning and purpose, and that's something you want to spend more time on, then you kind of spending some time on that as well. But it's always a good idea to kind of take your task list and then take this quadrant, and then you can kind of break it down and see where things land for yourself. Is it a low priority item? Is it a high priority item? Is it urgent right now? Is it not urgent right now? You can kind of, work through this, and this will really help you feel more organized and know, like, what are the tasks that are most important to you. Okay, and then thinking about, some of the ways we can increase productivity. So for most students, what I've heard is that if you sort of set some time aside every day, every week for studying, reading, managing notes, doing assignments, it can really just sort of help you generally and not feel so overwhelmed towards the finals, or when towards, everything's kind of starting to become due, and then you're kind of working on various different projects at the same time. So if you're spreading your work out a little bit throughout the semester, this could be really helpful. And ideally, they say you need you can spend about 2 hours per week for every hour you spend in class. So if you're taking 15 credit hours, then you should schedule about 30 hours of study time in your weekly study schedule. So like thinking about that, creating time for 30 hours of study time plus schoolwork can be challenging. So just kind of really being mindful of like what classes, what projects need your attention one particular week versus week to week, and things could change. And that can really help you set some goals, daily goals. If there's a priority item that you need to complete right now, some weekly goals for yourself. Okay, I need to complete X, Y, and Z, and some monthly goals. So that can kind of really bring some more structure around this, so you're not feeling overwhelmed with all the competing responsibilities we have. This is kind of just like a helpful tip, thinking about when are you your best? Like, when do you feel like you're most productive? Where do you feel like you're most awake and alert? So say, if you're a morning person, then you're blocking out time in the morning. You can also, study at night for some folks. Like, that seems to be more productive time for them. So just kind of figuring out during the day, when are you, feeling more alert and can give your attention the most, and it's quiet time for you. So just figuring out, when you're your best can really help you feel a little bit more productive. In addition to that, it might be easy to feel like you can study for 2, 3, 4 hours straight. But realistically, it's much better for you to to kind of break down your study blocks into like smaller chunks, so like 1 hour or less. And then if that's seeming a little bit hard to do, so if it feels like sitting down and studying for 1 hour can be really challenging, break it further down into how many ever minutes we can do. Start with 10 minutes, then give yourself a break, come back, and then you can kind of tackle what you need to tackle. But also kind of making sure that your breaks aren't too long. So it's not that, you're studying 15 minutes and then you're not coming back to it for like half an hour, and that can kind of really create lack of continuity in what you're doing. So of course, schedule a little time, but then, also schedule that little break in between so that you can kind of get away from it and then kind of come back to the task that you're doing. Try to stick as much as you can to your start and stopping times, even though at times when you feel like you can be really in a zone and in a role. Try to stick with that, and if you've given yourself an hour, study for an hour, take a break, go outside, take a minute or a couple of minutes break, breathe. It can be really helpful in kind of rejuvenating and giving you more energy, and it can help actually with your attention. So, and if it makes you feel less burned out, it can just kind of help give you a little bit of burst of energy, helps you refocus when you come back to task. So it can help with staying energized and staying focused. And during those brief breaks, it might be a good idea not to just look at your screen. So see if you can kind of avoid any screen time. So typically no phone or television. That way you are actually giving yourself a true break. Because at times when we, disengage from one task and we engage in another one, you're really not kind of giving yourself a true break from the task at hand. So if you're studying, it would be a good idea to maybe just kind of get up, get a glass of water, walk around a little bit, do some light stretching. You can do some deep breathing exercises. These are all really good way to kind of take a break, to kind of pull back a little bit, kind of refocus, and give yourself a little bit of time to feel more energized. Also, can you pet your dog, or talk to someone or have a quick chat? Like, those are all good ways of taking a break in between studying. Some other ways we try to increase productivity is when you have large projects, or if you're working on large presentations or things that kind of require a lot of time. It's typically easier to divide them into manageable tasks, just so you don't feel overwhelmed. And it again kind of gives you a really good roadmap of tasks you need to do first based on the priority, and then you can kind of start tackling them one at a time. And try to do the most difficult and boring tasks first. And I know that can be really hard and challenging, but it could really just kind of make it easier for you so that you're not putting off the harder tasks, which can kind of then make your project or whatever that is you need to complete, you maybe try to push it away and avoid it. And that's why I think it's always a little bit better if you start with doing the most difficult and boring tasks first and get that out of the way. And then you can kind of, get into the parts that you enjoy. Also, we want to think a little bit more about just your study area. Do you have a designated space to study where you're at? And is it quiet and distraction free? So, you're kind of setting an intention for that study period. So for students that I've heard that seem to be really successful with time management, they have a specific space that they go to. It could be library for some folks, but right now, we can't go out. So maybe it is in your apartment or your house where you can go to, and you're kind of trying to minimize as much distractions. So you're making sure you're not have your phone around or a television around. So you can kind of really give your full attention to what you're doing. um, the task that you have at hand. Also, even when we are thinking about all the things we need to accomplish, it's just as important to engage in healthy self-care activities. So take breaks, spend some time rejuvenating and feeling more energetic. And it could be tasks that give you meaning and purpose. For some people, it could be writing poetry, it could be reading, it could be exercising, taking a walk. You can catch up with friends, either on your phone or through video sharing. So there are different ways of connecting with people right now. And then you're kind of really also spending some time to self-care and taking care of your mental health. And then plan enough time for studying and account for distractions. So even though it is important that you're kind of getting things done and you're studying, but you're also kind of being mindful of your schedule and giving some breathing room for when unexpected things happen, because unexpected things do happen. So there is some amount of flexibility in your schedule. So you're not as strict with it and like following to the T, but then you're kind of also accounting for things that could come up last minute or distractions that could happen. And that can kind of really give you a little bit more freedom. And this is probably one of the most important points, but kind of remembering to reward yourself when you do complete a task. And that could look different for different folks. Just kind of thinking about what would be a treat for you, what would be a reward for you if you do complete a task. And particularly when you're kind of making some progress on difficult and those boring tasks, it's a really good idea to kind of reward yourself. Take a break, call a friend, enjoy a treat, just something to kind of remind yourself of all the progress that you're making. All right, switching gears a little bit and talking about procrastination. So procrastination is typically letting the low priority tasks get in the way of high priority tasks. So for example, spending time with friends or socializing when an important work project is due, or watching TV instead of doing your paper. And I know that most of us kind of struggle with procrastination from time to time. It's perfectly normal. But if you have some skills in your toolbox, it would be a little bit easier to avoid pushing off things that you need to do into the future. And the one that I hear the most is probably, I'll wait until I'm in the mood to do it. There's plenty of time to get it done. I work under pressure, so I don't really need to do it right now. And I would say that a lot of students kind of realize that when they do keep putting things off, when things are due, it can become extremely stressful and anxiety provoking, and it just not kind of affects your mental health. It also affects the quality of your work. And that's why it can become really difficult for folks if they're not feeling like they're kind of making the progress that they need to do. And that's where planning and prioritizing can be really helpful, because then you're kind of making progress throughout and not feeling like you have to kind of do everything at the last minute to complete it. So just kind of being more mindful of these mental traps of, oh, I'm a little bit more productive and I'm under a little more pressure, or I can always do it later. And kind of really thinking about what's kind of getting into the way of you doing what you need to do. So some of the reasons that I hear about, the reasons why people procrastinate is, one is perfectionism. So sometimes setting such unreachable standards for ourselves, and having this idea is that, whatever it is that you're working on needs to be a perfect piece. It has to be the most exemplary work. It has to be the best work. And that's a real trap, because at times in wanting to reach perfection, we don't end up doing the work that we need to do. And a lot of times we the ideals of perfect are just not reachable and realistic. Um, and and so if you find yourself that you're kind of really spending a lot of time kind of thinking about and worrying about these like perfect tasks that you're going to do, just kind of reflect back and sit and think that what can be your best effort? Is that going to be good enough? And kind of trying to stay away from the trap of, perfectionism. Some folks kind of talk about they have some concerns about evaluation of others, about your work. So feeling inadequate, feeling like I won't do it well, what will people think, or what will my professor think? I wonder what my classmates are thinking, and that can increase some anxiety of how you're being judged by other people, and then that kind of have people feel like, okay, if I could just put it off, it's too anxiety provoking. I don't know if I can kind of tackle this particular task right now. Sometimes ambiguity. Sometimes, people put things off because they're not even sure what it is that they need to do. If the expectations are not very clear from your professor or the project that you're tackling, then you're like, okay, I don't know where to start. I don't know what the goals are. I don't know what's expected of me. So sometimes it's easier to just like, okay, I can't think about this right now. I'll think about it later. I'm not really sure even where to start. And also some of the reasons that could be it's not interesting task. It's not a meaningful task to you. If something is given, then it just doesn't interest you. And then you're like, oh, it's just hard to find motivation to be engaged, to complete that particular project. So then just kind of it's kind of nice to kind of reflect back and think, okay, what is behind that? What do I need to do to be done with it? Or how can I find some meaning and purpose in the activity that I'm doing right now? Another reason that I hear folks procrastinate is you're kind of accepting other people's goals. So a project gets imposed on you. It's really not interesting to you. It's not something that's relevant to you. And then it's just somebody else is kind of expecting you to complete something. And that can also, again, it kind of becomes like, I'm not really interested in this. I don't really know how to do this. And I don't even know if I want to do it. And that can also kind of lead to putting off things that need to be done. So what are some of the ways you can tackle procrastination? I think some of the tools that we have already talked about would be really, really helpful. So thinking about just time management in terms of like prioritizing and planning, and breaking large, projects into smaller pieces could be really helpful. But in addition to that, just kind of, being more aware of what's leading to the procrastination. So you're kind of really thinking about all the stuff that we've already talked about, but you're also kind of thinking about what are your reasons for putting things off? What is behind that? And then also you're identifying what are the barriers to change. So what would it need to take, and create an action list of whatever that it is that you need to do. So if you have those, like if you are able to identify some of your barriers, you're able to then you're able to kind of tackle it and then know exactly what's behind pushing things off into the future, and what would be barriers essentially if you wanted to change your behavior. Something we talk about in in sessions with students is just how are we talking to ourselves? What messages are we telling ourselves? So really kind of identifying internally what that dialogue happens, whether it's I'm not good enough, or I'm not in the mood to do it right now. So you can start looking at that and think a little bit more about encouraging and positive self-statements that can help you feel more motivated and feel like you have a sense of ability to be able to complete those tasks. So kind of really paying more attention to the internal dialogue that happens with all of us. Is it a supportive, caring dialogue, or is it more punitive and harsh statements that you're telling yourself? And also, is there room to kind of challenge some of those thoughts and beliefs? So saying, if I'm not in the mood right now, is there a way to say, okay, my mood does not need to dictate my actions. I can still, even though I may not feel it right now, is there some progress I can make on the thing that I need to do? And with that, just I like this kind of 3-step process of tackling procrastination. Firstly, like identifying benefits of finishing a task. So that can kind of really help you refocus. So if there's something that you've been putting off for a while, okay, what would be the plus points of actually getting this done? And that could be kind of like a motivating factor, because you're like, okay, I just need to do this for my class, like I can get a grade and I can move forward in my academics. It could be as simple as that, or it could be, oh, it wouldn't just linger on in my mind so much. It has taken so much space in my brain. Maybe it would be nice to just be done with it and move forward and do something else. Or you could kind of look forward to a treat after you're done with your task. Really, start looking at some of the self-defeating beliefs associated with completing a task. So just some things that kind of get in your own way. Like, what's that internal dialogue that's happening? Is it perfectionism? Is it anxiety about others' evaluation of your work? Is there other factors going on? Is the task boring or not relevant to you? What's kind of going on behind that? And then what is the script that runs in our head? It's too anxiety provoking right now. Like, I don't want to do this. I'll just do it in the future. So then you're kind of really looking at that. What are some of your thoughts and feelings, and how can you work through challenges? And then, as we had talked about before, setting up some SMART goals, setting up some goals by priority and importance and urgency. And then, setting up an action plan that can kind of really help you. Okay, these are some of my internal dialogues. Like, what concrete steps can I take to help me accomplish that particular task? And that could kind of give you a really nice roadmap into where you need to go, and what it would feel like to finish that particular task that you've been avoiding for a while. So these are some of like basic skills that could kind of really help you feel more productive, to avoid procrastination, to be a better planner. So some of the things that I have kind of talked about in here, they're also available to you through UTD Student Success Center, and you can always schedule an appointment with an academic success coach. At their office currently, because the campus is closed, you may not have access to them, but you can always email them or call them and set up an appointment so that you can they can really help you with establishing a schedule. You can learn more about time management skills. So it's their office that can kind of really help you with some of the most structural part of and skills part of time management. And a little bit more information about us. So if you're dealing with any difficulties, just know that we are open right now and we are seeing students virtually. And the best way to get in touch with us is through emailing us on counselingcenter@utdallas.edu. And of course, if you're ever in crisis and need to speak to a mental health professional, you can contact us at 972-883-8255, and that's UTD Talk. So those are another way of kind of getting in touch with our office. And of course, stay tuned for more videos that are coming up. And it was just really a pleasure to be able to speak to you all and do a short presentation on time management. And we hope to see you all soon. Thank you.